Are you sick of paying for web hosting? How would you like to pay less than $1 for an entire year and have it hosted in a data center where you don't have to have extra hardware or anything else? Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. I've done it for the past 5 years and literally have spent less than $5 in that time. Pretty incredible, and I'm going to show you how to do it. So first couple things here. One, you have to have a Google account, which you're on YouTube, so you have that. Go to the Google Cloud platform, sign up, create a project, and we can get going. Other prerequisites is the Google GCloud needs to be installed on your machine. I highly recommend using this. The web-based SSH is okay, but it gets real finicky and a little buggy, so I always recommend installing GCloud. Other things to note, the charge that you actually incur on this is from the static IP that you rent out from Google. And that IP, I've seen charges as little as 1 penny on my credit card, which I think it costs them more money to charge the card at that point, and then as expensive as 7 cents. So that is how cheap it is. As far as the microserver we will be configuring in this video, that is actually free as long as you have a credit card on file with Google Cloud Platform. Now, I was totally paranoid when I first started this. It sounded too good to be true, and 5 years ago it was, I thought. But after doing it for such an extended period of time, I thought, why not go ahead and show it to you? Because it is extremely powerful, and I'm sick of seeing all these ads for all these web hosting companies, and they're literally the ones that set it up like this. They're using the same services. Heck, it's probably sitting in the same data center right now. The only difference is you're paying $20 a month, and they're paying pennies. Heck, probably even less than pennies, because they have the big servers and throw hundreds of websites on one server. So they're paying even less than what you're about to pay. With that said, let's get into the video. This is a long video. Check the timestamps. If there's specific things you're going to have to come back to, there's going to be questions. Hit me up in the comments. Hopefully the community can answer those, or I'll try to answer them. If it's within the first day or two, I will. And with that said, let's make it happen and get into it. All right, let's start by creating our VM in Google Cloud Platform. If you haven't already, make sure, one, you have a Google account, you've signed in and signed up for Google Cloud Platform. I highly recommend adding a credit card so you can get the free tier, and it will, have a couple penny charge that I've already gone over. And then also make sure you install the GCloud package. The link is in the description below if you're unfamiliar of GCloud, but it is a simple apt-get, or if you are on Arch, it is in the AUR. So let's go ahead and pull up GCloud. You can simply type console.cloud.google.com and it'll pull up this page. From here, make sure you go to the compute engine. And once here, you'll have this screen. We're going to create our first VM in our Google Cloud instance. You can choose whichever one you want. I'm actually going to change this just for simplicity's sake and go with an LTS version of Ubuntu at 20 gigs. I believe the micro instance up here, right there, is what we want. As far as the region goes, I'm central, so I like to do central 1. And then that is pretty much set up on firewall. Make sure you allow HTTP and HTTPS so you get your web traffic through to this machine. So with that, we're creating a 20 gig, a micro instance, and this is going to be our WordPress install. And just make sure everything is lowercase. All right, we'll hit create. And this will take a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and speed this up. Usually this creation process takes about 1 to 2 minutes, so not very long at all. Just know it's not an instantaneous thing. Okay, so for this one, what we need to do now is run our GCloud command to connect to this instance that is now created. It is very simple to install GCloud. Again, I left the link in the description below. It's just a simple apt-get or an AUR install. So we'll view our command and just simply copy this, and we just paste that into terminal. So let's go ahead and do just that. Enter passphrase. I'm gonna probably just completely wipe this out afterwards. So I don't really care about the passphrase because I'm not gonna be blurring out like external IPs or any of that business. So nobody needs to get any ideas about it. I'm just going to delete this entire project after I am finished with this video. All right, so we're installed. This is the first boot up of this actual instance. So the very first things we always do is just a simple AP update and sudo apt upgrade. Now the beauty of Google Cloud is they're constantly updating their images because people are constantly launching these things. So when it updates stuff, it's usually like 1 or 2 packages and then it's done. So it's not like a fresh install on your home PC. People, system admins all over the world are constantly sitting here pegging this system. So they're always updating these. So the update and upgrade, as you see here, is pretty much done after just a couple seconds to a minute on this little bitty micro machine. All right, so with that done, we've done our update. Everything's set to go. Let's get into step 2, installing the swap file and optimizing performance, because this is what we're working with a micro instance. Not much. We got about 582 megs of RAM, 1 shared CPU, and no swap file by default. Now, obviously, we're going to be using 582 megs of memory in this sucker, so having a swap file can be very vital to its performance. So that's the very first thing I'm going to set up going into step 2. So to do the swap file, we just need to do first an fallocate, and I'm just going to do 1 gig. That should be plenty for this system. There's no reason to make a giant swap file thinking you'll get more memory. Swap files don't work that way. This just helps with the low memory usage. So with the fallocate done, we need to do a dd and wipe this file out. All right, that looks good. The dd usually takes about a minute to do. I'll go ahead and speed up for this part. All right, that is finished. So from there, we just need to make this readable only by the root, just as a security precaution. So we'll do a chmod 600 swap file. From here, now the swap file is all prepped, we can actually make the swap. So sudo make swap file. Yay, it is done. So with that, we can actually turn it on. Swap on, swap file. With the swap on and swap file, it is now utilizing the swap file. The last thing is on reboot, we need to make sure we edit our fstab to show this change. So we just simply add that in there. So it's going to be a swap partition. Swap is the actual type of partition it is, and then just defaults and 00 is all we need for this. And after doing any modification to fstab, always do a sudo mount -a just to make sure you didn't have any misspellings in there. So swap file's done. Step 2 is done. Let's verify with an htop, and you see the gig of space in our swap. So first level is done. Now it is time to install the LAMP stack, which stands for Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. This is the bread and butter of any system admin that does any kind of websites. They know a lot about doing LAMP stacks, and this is the easiest way I've found to do it seamlessly and pretty darn quick. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. First, we're going to do a sudo apt install task sel. I use this basically to jump over having to constantly cut and paste whole bunches of packages into apt. So now with this installed, we can just do sudo task sel, and we just do install lamp server. This will go ahead and install all our packages, the ones I just named. Now there's a couple more that we need to do just because this is a WordPress instance, and I'm going to go over that after this finishes installing. Again, this install will take about 30 seconds to a minute usually, so all this goes pretty darn quick. All right, the LAMP stack is installed, and now let's go ahead and add the extra stuff from apt. Again, the copy paste will be done. I'll leave a link in the description below with the entire article with all of this stuff in here, so you can easily copy and paste this just like I'm doing right here from my cheat sheet. That'll be on my website, christitus.com. So with that, let's go ahead and install the rest of our dependencies, and we'll pretty much be ready to configure this thing. All right, we're done. All the prerequisites have been met. All the requirements are ready. We can go ahead and jump into the configuration and get going. So from this point, you would actually go ahead and get the static IP for this machine. So we'll just do a curl and just grab this. This is the easiest way to do it. It's just curl ifconfig.me, and this would grab our external IP, which is this guy. Again, I'm going to wipe this IP out afterwards, so don't bother going after this instance because it will be wiped out. So copy that, and then you would go into your DNS registrar, and let's say you have your domain, mine's christitus.com. You would create an A record for that domain and point it to this IP. That means any traffic going to christitus.com would go to this cloud, Google Cloud instance, and it would be, you know, hopefully pull up the website after we're all done. So that is the basis of actually getting it going. Now, obviously, I don't have a sample website, and I don't want to waste all the time doing a DNS update and then waiting hours for it to finally update. So we're going to cheat in this section. Just ignore the next couple things I do, just because I'm going to be modifying my host system here and then also the Google Cloud system or instance, so it thinks that, hey, this website is real and we can pull it up and configure it. So to do this, I'm going to completely take DNS out of the equation and then do direct modifications to my host file. If you don't know anything of what I just said, just know you don't need to do this as long as you add that A record into your DNS server, and then you need to wait a couple hours for it to update. We'll make a fake domain under the name SquareGator is for noobs.com. You see what I did there? Yeah. All right, and then we also need to do it on this machine too. So let's go back to my home machine. That's what I just did with my multiplexer. And we will do the same thing. SquareGator is for noobs.com. And we'll exit this. All right, we're back on our Google Cloud. DNS has been set up. We're ready to rock and roll. So the next thing we need to do is actually set up our domain name in our Apache configuration file. So to do this, we go to etc Apache 2 and sites available. So we have the default site, and we need to actually copy this guy to our, I like to name it the exact same as the domain name. It's just a best practice, especially when you have multiple websites hosted on one server. For you, it probably doesn't matter. You could honestly just edit the 00 default and not have to worry about any of this. But I do like to actually configure this. So let's go ahead. SquareGator is for noobs.com.conf. Notice I added the .conf onto it, and it helps if you do it as super user. And honestly, on this, we're going to go ahead and switch into root, just because you really done user abilities on servers and stuff. A lot of people are knocking me in some past videos just because a lot of times I would run as root just so I could configure the server, exit, and then I'd probably never touch that server for like another year. So I didn't really care about running root. It's just I've gotten into practice doing a lot of desktop Linux work. Now I'm doing sudo all the time just because it's ingrained in me. But running sudo is probably a good habit. But for today, we're going to go ahead and run as root. We're going to live on the edge. So let's go ahead and edit this config file. First thing we set up is our server name, and SquareGator is for noobs. And let's go ahead and make an alias as well, just in case we have a www. All right, and then we also need to set up a directory path. I'm going to leave everything under HTML. Also, if you're doing multiple websites, you probably don't want to do that. You probably should choose another directory. So that said, just know that. Require all granted. All right, we're set up. So this is it for this config. We'll exit out. Now I like to go ahead and disable the default. So let's go A2 dis site. And again, we're running as root, so we don't have to do sudo. All right. The default site is disabled. Let's go ahead and A2 insite. Kind of funny. I never actually said that out loud. It's insightful. All right. Square Gator. So after this, our site is all set up. So if we just do a system control reload Apache 2. All right. Our Apache 2 is all set up, and we will go ahead and test this. Pull up our website here. Let's type in squaregator.is-for-noobs.com. Ooh, Apache is installed and it works. Fantastic. So we can continue with our configuration. Next up, we're going to prep the database and PHP. Easiest way to do this. A lot of people like to use PHP at MyAdmin. Honestly, I don't recommend you do that unless you're constantly in the database doing this and that. A lot of times I like to just do it once from terminal, and then you don't ever have to mess with it again. So, you know, to each his own. Today, I'm just going to show you the terminal way because I find it easier. -U for user root, and let's go ahead and create our database. Semicolon after every command in the MySQL prompt. And then we just need to grant all privileges and create our user. Grant all WordPress .star. We need all the tables to, let's call this WordPress user. Real inventive. Identified by secure 1234, the most secure password in the world. And enter. Oh, forgot the semicolon. All right, well, that was embarrassing. Make sure you spell identified by correctly. Identified. Yay. English wasn't my strong subject in school, by the way. Math was. All right, so with that done, we can go ahead and quit out of our MySQL prompt after misspelling identified so many times. And from here, let's go ahead and secure our installation. Actually, you know what? I'll choose yes, because you should always be using a strong password. You can choose low, medium, or strong. Let's go ahead and just choose low, but I highly recommend you choose at least medium. All right, new password for root. All right, do you wish to continue with password private? Yes. Remove anonymous users, yes. Disallow root login remotely, yes. Remove test database, yes. Reload privilege tables, yes. All done. All right, so MySQL secured. We created our thing. Make sure you remember the password you used up in this section right here. We need to know that the database name's WordPress, our user's WordPress user, and then our password secure 1234 exclamation mark and a capital S. Ah. Super secure. All right, one last thing before we're ready to go and download our WordPress. A couple PHP modifications I usually always make. Let's go ahead and flip over to our PHP directory and see what we got. We go to etc PHP, the version, in Apache 2, and we're gonna nano into php.ini. From here, I'd like to just do a search. First thing I change is the max input time. This is set at 60, I believe. Let's go ahead. Max input time again. Yeah, I like to set this down to 30. And right below it usually is, let's see if I can catch it. It's the upload is what we need. It's not right below it. So we'll just do upload. We're changing the max upload that we need. So file upload size. This is always set at 2 megs, which is extremely low, especially if you're migrating WordPress. It's going to be well over 2 megs. So I at least set it to 20 megs. In some instances, I've even upped it to 100 megs on really big websites, but 20 megs should get you by. The last thing is the post max size. I like to set this just a hair above the upload max size. So let's find the post max size. We'll do a Control W, post max size.
and that's set at 8 megs. Let's go ahead and set that at 21. So with that, we should be able to import things, do things a little easier in PHP. So I do like to make those little modifications. There's other hardening and security measures you can take, which I do recommend. Just make sure that you follow the steps. These things I think are pretty essential to pretty much any WordPress install. All right, I think we're ready, guys, to install our WordPress. So let's go over to our directory and see what we got. We have our index file showing that beautiful Apache test page from earlier. Let's go ahead. We'll just move that index to a lower directory. All right. So this directory is nice and clean. Let's wget our latest WordPress. So we're going to go on to wordpress.org/latest.tar.gz, and from here we'll just do a tar xvf latest. All right, this puts it into WordPress directory, which, you know, we want it in our root directory. So let's go ahead, move all files to the lower directory. So if we look, this is gone, and all our files are now in this directory, so we can go ahead and remove that WordPress folder and that latest tar zip. And now we need to make the actual configuration. Let's go ahead, and I'm going to change the sample file, and we'll use that to work off of. We'll just make it wp-config.php. And remember, if you're working on a live server, I highly recommend you hurry up in this section, or make a sample file, change it first, and then push it to the WP config and load it right up, because your system's completely wide open when it's like this. So very important to know, once you've actually configured this, you need to jump right in and configure the next part once WordPress is configured. So let's do our config file. And now earlier, we set up all those things. Make sure you go back and verify that this is the right thing. So we're going to do WordPress. And then for the database user, this is going to be WordPress user. I was really inventive with the password and usernames here. Secure 1234 exclamation. Host name, all the rest of this you can pretty much leave default. Last thing is the salts. Always fill this in. Do not just leave the defaults. So just take this, copy it. All right, so then we get our salts. Let's just Control-A, Control-C that, and pop back into our file, paste this in, output, done. So from here, we're pretty much done with the WordPress configuration. Everything's set. We should have a website at our wonderful website for hosting that, you know, everyone's going to want to use. So let's see. Square Gator is for noobs.com. Let's see if we did it right. Hot dog. Let's say site title, visit me on Patreon. You see what I did there? Yeah. And then your user, let's call this one Chris Titus. Password that. Let's just copy that guy. Make sure you copy your password and save it somewhere special. Contact@christitus.com and install WordPress. Installs actually goes pretty darn quick. You should have that set up. You can just go Chris Titus. And then our password, remember me. Welcome to WordPress. Now from here, you can just take it and go. You now have your very own WordPress install from a hosted solution that you're paying literally pennies for. And those pennies are literally only the static IP that you're paying for. So for an entire year, your hosting costs will be less than $1. Pretty awesome stuff. Extremely powerful. Now, again, this is only for people with, lower end visitors. I currently get about 1,000 unique visitors a day on my site. So a micro instance is not what I use. I'm actually the level up from this. And once it starts getting kind of hit and maxed out and seeing sluggish performance, I'll probably up it to more of like a $20 plan at that point. But if I get to that point, we're talking like 100,000 visitors, and that's going to be drawing some serious cheese at that point. It'll be 100x growth from where I'm at right now. So that $20 a month is not going to matter to me one bit. Pretty awesome stuff. This is the stock settings, everything's set up like this out of the box. Now you install your themes and go to town from here. Now there's one last thing I wanted to show you before we go away. There's tuning that needs to happen on this, and the tuning is critical to get proper performance, because by default micro instances are way overtuned, meaning they allow way more traffic than they should. You need to be throttling this using what's called the MPM Prefork, and that is actually up here in the title. It was one of my very first videos when my channel name was the Technology Vault. I don't know. So the video quality is not the best. However, the content is still very good. It shows you what MPM Prefork tuning does, how to modify it to each specific system that it's on, and how to properly do this. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do it for a micro instance. So if you want to copy these settings, you totally can. Just know that that's what I'm doing. That's how I come by these numbers, and it's just good. And I might even throw in a little script here just so you guys can see what a tuning looks like. This script's going to be completely off basis because this needs to run and see traffic for probably at least a couple days before the script actually gives you a good baseline before doing the tuning. But let's do the traditional tuning I like to do for the micro instances. So let's go ahead and nano back into our Apache mods enabled, and npm prefork.conf is what we need. So what this is right now it's tuned for basically a full system, which this is definitely not. Start servers 1, min spare servers 2, maximum spare servers 2, request workers is going to be 10. Maximum connections per child, you can leave this at 0. I like to amp it up to about probably 1,000. Anything over that, it's obviously a runaway connection, and it's probably best to shut down. It doesn't really matter. You could leave this at 0, but I like to at least configure it a little bit. From here, I'll go ahead and write this out. Let's see, actually max spare servers, I'm going to change this to 5. I did that wrong. So start servers 1, minimum spare servers 2, max spare servers I put at 5, and then max request workers is 10. So just kind of have that in the back of your mind, what you should have and what you should not. So let's exit out of here with this, and I'm going to show you a script that I like to do. It's by Richard Forth. This genius on GitHub created this script, and it is just fantastic. So let's go ahead and not put the Perl script in the root of our website. Let's go back to our home directory and do it there. Let's make it writable. And from here, we can just go ahead and run Apache 2 Buddy. And what this does is it kind of goes through, checks out, sees any problems with it, and then reports back what your settings are and says, hey, your settings are junk or not. And there you go. So right now it says, hey, max request workers is far too low. We recommend between 15 and 17. Well, this is a brand new instance. It has extremely low uptime. So there's no real good basis of this yet. I have a hunch if I left this going and configured this site and added plugins and things like that, memory usage would go far up, and that 15 and 17 would probably go down to 10 or maybe even a little less. I might even need to edge this down. I need to revisit this in a day or two if I kept this site up and going.
So that was it, guys. Pretty incredible stuff when it comes to getting this working. I didn't figure this is hard, and if you're already a Linux user, you're going, oh my God, Titus, this is way easier than I ever anticipated. That's pretty powerful, and it is, and I've used it for years and years, and it has served me incredibly well. I can't speak highly. In the 5 years I've been on Google Cloud Platform hosting a website, it has gone down this many times. 0 times. That's how many. I don't have any crazy disaster recovery plans or anything with them. I'm just using most of the free stuff. Now I have stepped up since my website has seen more traffic in the recent months that I've had to step up from a micro server to the next best thing. I think I'm actually to a dedicated CPU because I do monitoring and some other stuff using Nagios, but the end story of this is so much cheaper just to do it this way, and you get just as good as performance, reliability, and security than you would if you go through these other companies. And I'd even venture to say you'd have probably a better security and uptime than many of these really cheap web hosting companies that are like $5 or $10 a month. So with that said, guys, let me know what you think in the comments. Visit me on Patreon, and I'll see you in the next video.